everyone, and welcome back to Importer Insight, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the global import community. Today, I am thrilled to welcome someone who needs no introduction on the Texas produce scene, but I'll give it to him anyway. Dante Galeazzi is the president and CEO of the Texas International Produce Association, a powerhouse voice for growers, shippers, and importers across the Lone Star State and beyond. Under his leadership, TIPA has been at the front lines of the big issues shaping our industry, everything from border policy and water rights in the Rio Grande Valley to keeping our trade lanes open and transparent. And today we're diving into one of the most important issues but least talked about challenges in our industry, which is fraud. Dante's been leading the charge and raising awareness, protecting members, and making sure our industry has the tools it needs to stay strong and resilient. I can't think of a better person to have this conversation with, so stay tuned because that's happening right now. Welcome, Dante, to Importer Insight. We're so happy to have you here. Today, we're going to be discussing fraud in the produce industry. You've been a huge advocate on this front. Can you tell us what's going on and what TIPA is doing to help its members and the produce industry across the board?
Yeah, well, Amanda, thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much for agreeing to talk about this topic. I know once you saw it, you were interested. And I thought, man, who actually wants to hear about fraud? But the more we've dug into it, unfortunately, the bigger we've seen the problem is. So, produce fraud. Really what we're seeing here is three different scenarios. We're seeing buyer impersonation, we're seeing truck broker impersonation, and then we're seeing fraudulent requests to change banking. If you're okay, let me kind of present those three, and then from there,
absolutely.
You can ask me the 1,000,001 questions. All right, so buyer impersonation. Here's what it looks like is this, this person calls in to a outstanding shipper, and they usually represent themselves as a company that you are most likely to have on your books. So they call in and they're like, hey, I'm Bob from Walmart, or I'm Bob from Wakefern, or I'm Bob from whatever. When in reality, that's not the company he's from. But he knows that the shippers are going to have Walmart or Wakefern or whoever in their system. And so they're already going to be set up for credit. So Bob calls, says, hey, I'm with XYZ company. The company says, all right, Bob, you're a new guy. Thanks. What can I do for you? Bob says, well, I want to buy a load. Buys whatever it is, limes, avocados, tomatoes. I mean, the list I have, Amanda, probably covers about 50 different commodities. So they'll buy whatever they can get their hands on.
Right.
So they buy this load. They have it shipped somewhere, usually along the East Coast. And then they do this over the course of 20 days, and then they disappear. And basically, you have no one to chase because Bob was never with that company. That company says, yep, that's not my guy. The loads are gone, and now you're left holding the bag. That's buyer fraud. The second one is truck broker fraud. Very similar. Someone calls in and pretends to be from a large truck brokerage company. Maybe they're with UTI. Maybe they're with Giroux, right? Outstanding companies, but this guy's impersonating them. Why? He knows that every shipper is going to have UTI and Giroux in their system already. So this guy calls and says, hey, I'm with Giroux. Man, I got this truck that wants to go to Dallas, right? The rate for Dallas is normally $1,800. This truck wants to get there for $1,000, right? He's got to get there for his daughter's wedding or something the next day. And as a shipper, you go, well, that's great. I can save $800 on freight. Let me dream up a load to Dallas. It happens. You give the pickup number to the broker. Truck shows up because the truck's in cahoots with the broker on this particular scenario. The load picks up, pulls out of the shed. You think it's fine. Not till 4 days later when you think the load is supposed to deliver, do you realize that the truck is now MIA and you can't find Bob and you can't find the truck or the product? The load is stolen. That's scenario number 2. Scenario number 3, we don't see very much of, but it has happened. What happens is the accounting offices for a buyer gets a request on a letterhead, right? And it could come from a small shipper, medium shipper, whoever. And this request on letterhead goes to accounting. So the buyer almost never seals it, or the salesperson. And it says, hey, we've changed banks. Please send the payment to this bank moving forward. And so, accounting doesn't know They're looking at something that looks like the same logo, the right information. They change banks, and nobody's the wiser until 30 days later when they go, hey, how come you haven't paid me? Oh, well, I did. I sent it all to your new account. I don't have a new bank account. Well, lo and behold, they go to check and that bank account is cleared out. I mean, the minute it gets money, they're taking that money out. Those
Right.
owners are gone. And yeah, now we have yet a different type of theft. Those are the three fraud scenarios we're seeing. And it is happening, unfortunately, at a much higher scale than we thought it was.
I'm going to add one more to your list.
Yeah.
An example or something that happened to me recently was an internal email. Somebody, that had our company email attached to it, sent an email to the group or to me, and I'm assuming other people in my company got it, but it was from HR, and it was asking you to click on this QR code and enter in your information and do all of these things in order to access your computer, your information, and so
Uh,
forth, trying to steal our identities. And it was really scary. I saw it and I thought, what is this? I even asked my supervisor, what is this? Is this fraud? Is this phishing or something? And he agreed that it was, because it wasn't from them. But I found it so odd that they were actually using our email,
yeah.
an internal email, which is really, really scary. You just have to be so careful.
I've talked to law enforcement as we try to establish a task force. That's really been the big challenge is we are dealing with folks that know our industry, right?
Mhm.
And so they know how to exploit us.
Right.
When I was talking to law enforcement, they said, oh, well, do you think it's because people are naive or ignorant? I said, no, I don't think it's that at all. You're getting people that know the business. The
Yeah.
problem is the fraudsters know the business as well, and they know where the opportunities for fraud exist, right?
Mhm.
They know that we're going to have a big company in our system already. They know we're going to extend them credit. They also know that we don't start chasing people for money until 30 days after the first order, right? So these guys will put in as many of these false loads and steal them as they can in 20 days. And then at day 21, they disappear because they know, oh, this is about the time someone's going to start looking for money.
Right.
So it's not because anyone's naive or ignorant. It's because they know that's how our industry works. And so they're taking advantage of us. They're
Yeah,
exploiting.
absolutely. Absolutely. And everybody wants a sale. Everybody is
Right.
hopeful that what they're getting and receiving and being asked for is true. And, if everything kind of looks like it's checking out, even if it's just a letter off, it's so easy to make those mistakes and because of human error. So what would be your recommendations for companies to avoid helping these fraudsters out?
Yeah, yeah. Man, I got to tell you, that's been part of what I'm working on with this task force too, is what are the things we can do?
Hmm.
So first and foremost, I think it is important that you make everybody in your company aware that fraud is happening,
Yes.
right? Even if it's not happening within your business or your business hasn't been targeted, I think it's important that our entire industry know that we are being targeted. Fresh produce companies are being targeted. Somebody out there knows how we use Blue Book. Somebody out there knows the limitations of PACA. Somebody out there knows when we make phone calls, when we check on trucks, etc. So think about it from that perspective. And I think if you start there, that helps this next part.
Mhm.
Next part is fraud prevention, best practices. Anytime someone calls in that you don't know as a seller, I think you're going to have to use some extreme due diligence you've never had to use before. You need to make sure their emails are exactly alike, right? We have a TIPA member who got frauded. The guy rep said he was with a company, and the only thing he changed was he put an S inside the email address, at a very small place
Mhm.
where it phonetically makes sense, but for that company didn't make sense. And again, the guy that got frauded looked at the email and went, "Oh, okay, that's right. That's right." He didn't realize there was an S there. Same thing. Sometimes they'll put a little hyphen or they'll put an extra dot where it doesn't go. Just these small tweaks that you don't catch. Number one. Number two, are they asking for the load to be delivered somewhere other than their own operation? That's a big one. That's a flag. Number three, is this person calling from a phone number that doesn't match the other phone numbers in Blue Book, right? If that area code, for example, is San Antonio and they're all 210 numbers, and then you get an 831 from Salinas, that should be a big red flag. So it's about kind of looking at the small details prior to taking the order. The second thing you can do is when you get somebody calling, and you've never done business with them before, is you need to call a third person or third party, disinterested party for confirmation. Let me be clear. Do not get the referral from the possible fraudster because they're just going to have you call somebody that's going to clear them, right? Here's what you do. You go in the blue book and, company A. This guy says, oh, I'm Bob from company A. All right. You go to Produce Blue Book, you go company A. All right. Who's in accounting department for company A? Oh, this is Alice. This is Alice's phone number. You call Alice. You say, Alice, I've got a Bob representing your company. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. I just want to confirm 2 other pieces. Is this Bob's email and Bob's phone number? Well, yes. Yes. Okay. And finally, is Bob okay to give me orders to sell or buy? Yes, Bob is authorized. Great. That's a great third person confirmation because if this guy is misrepresenting himself, there's no reason that the accounting person at that company would be part of it, right? So that's what I'm talking about. Use a third party independent. Now, that works in the buying scenario. In the truck brokerage side, I think unfortunately we have a lot fewer tools available there. And so on the truck brokerage side, this is going to be a little more challenging. The first bit of advice I would have is don't use a truck broker that you haven't used before unless you get a referral from someone else in the business.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And as somebody that works,
it's definitely important to have those referrals.
Yeah, referrals. And that's a great point, Amanda, is I think we've gotten away from referrals. We've leaned into not static, but electronic databases. We've leaned into these sources that people can also tap into and gather that information and pretend to be those companies. Right? And that's what's happening. I think referrals are huge. So I think if you get a new truck broker calling you, call a friend or ask that truck broker, hey, have you done business with any of these guys? No, or can you give me the name of a produce company you have done business with? Right? And then you can call them and say, hey, I've got a Bob from Giroux says he's got a truck for Dallas. Is that right? Oh, no, I've never dealt with Bob. Okay, no problem. Then you know not to use them. So I think that's important.
Yeah. So not only are we asked to sell now, but we need to be detectives as well,
Yeah,
which is really sad and scary. But I feel like it's really in the last couple of years, it's gotten really, really bad.
Yeah.
And more people are falling victim to it, unfortunately. And that's why we're doing this, to get the word out.
Yeah. And Amanda, you're something else I want to talk about that's adjacent to this issue too is law enforcement, right? These cases fall in a really weird space for law enforcement. Local police departments don't want to take these cases on. And they don't want to take them on because it's interstate, right? Meaning that their resources are really focused to theft in the area where they think that thief is still there.
Right.
This is a case where we are clearly telling them, hey, the theft occurred in Texas, but the product is ending up in another state. And they go, well, we just don't have the resources for that. We can't really help. So then your next guess is to probably call FBI. So we call the FBI and the FBI says, well, yep, we hear you, but we can't help because you haven't met the threshold for our theft. FBI has a threshold of about $500,000 to $1 million before they'll take on the case.
Wow.
Otherwise, it's too small for them. Yeah. So here in South Texas or in Texas, we were able to get our local district attorney to put together a task force, and Department of Homeland Security is actually the ones that they're going to step up and help us with the investigation. So we are on the front end of that. Yeah. Yeah.
It's really, really wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that they're willing to participate and looking into this in greater detail, because so many people have been affected. And yeah, sure, it's not $500,000, but it's, $40,000 or $50,000. And that hurts everybody's bottom line.
When I was talking to the DA and I was presenting the case, I said, District, $180,000 may not seem like a lot when you're dealing with multi-million-dollar companies like you are in the region. But let me give you some perspective from a produce company. I was like, imagine that you're running a produce company and you have a small office staff and you have a secretary, an accounting person, and a food safety person. Those 3 people added together, salaries and benefits, are probably $180,000 to $200,000. So that money being disappeared is taking away the salary and or life of 3 possible people at a small company. So it's a make or break figure. And that's been part of my frustration. I think the bigger part of my frustration is the fact that law enforcement doesn't have an easy solution. Like, this is your issue. Here's the person you should call. I think for me, the frustration is that law enforcement pretty much said, oh, this doesn't fit in my box. Poo-poo you, right?
So, what could we do as industry members to help motivate our authorities and our representatives?
Yeah. So that's a great question. I think the first thing we can do as an industry is we need to speak up. When I started working on this issue back in June, I was only aware of 3 companies when I sent that very first email that had fraud events
Yeah.
free. In response to that email, Amanda, in the months since, I have discovered at least 20 of our companies have spoken up and said, "Hey, I was a target of fraud." That's huge. Huge. Because the police aren't taking it on, because insurance aren't doing anything, and because it didn't look like there was an opportunity to help, people have pretty much taken the loss and moved on. And in my opinion, that's part of the problem, is it's sending the message to this crime ring, hey, as long as I stay under 500,000 and do as much theft in 20 days as I can, nobody's going to come after me. So
Right.
I should keep doing it some more. That's the wrong message. And so I think our companies need to speak up. I think what happens is a lot of things. Number one, we now understand how big the issue is.
Hmm.
Instead of me saying, "Hey, Amanda, I've got 20 members," we as an industry can say, "Hey, we have $100 million worth of fraud theft going on, and we need help." Right? So we
Yes.
understand the size. Number two, we can understand if there's repeats that are immediate flags. For example, in gathering information from TIPA members, I found out that there's an address in New Jersey that's been used at least 3 times. Imagine if I could share that address with everybody and people went, "Whoa, that address right there. I saw that on Dante's email. This is fraud. I'm not going there." Done, right? It becomes a repository for identifying patterns or identifying areas that are absolutely fraud, like repeat addresses or addresses that were previously used. So that's huge.
Yeah.
But again, that comes from people speaking up and actually putting that information somewhere. And I don't think we have that right now. So I think that's probably the lowest of hanging fruit, alongside doing some awareness and education within companies.
Well, I am happy to share that address or phone numbers if you want
Yeah,
to share them, and I will blast them anywhere I can because
please.
I don't know if you can hear, but we're recording and all this noise is going on. Your phone's ringing. I swear the devil's trying to stop this conversation right now because we're going to do a lot of good with this conversation.
That's right.
So, for anyone paying attention, you fraudsters, we're after you, we're on to you, and the authorities are coming for you. And I hope you
That's
get
right. They
caught
are.
and put away for a long time.
That's exactly right.
Yes. Yeah. There definitely needs to be consequences for these people because if there aren't any consequences, it'll just continue on, and we're only
Right.
going to be targeted more and more.
Right. Some of the fraud events people are telling me about date back 2 or 3 years.
Mhm.
So it's almost like these guys have perfected it,
Yes.
right? I mean, they've gotten to the point where they know they're not going to get caught. So they're happy to operate as fast as possible. I have some companies that have been targeted multiple times, right? And they know what to look for now, and they're like, they kind of laugh at it, but at the same time, if these fraudsters feel like no one's chasing them, why
Mhm.
wouldn't they call the same company 2 or 3 times? There's no consequence,
Yeah.
right? They type in the computer, "Hey, give me another phone number." Boom. All right,
Yes.
make an internet call for me.
So you mentioned a lot of these fraudulent cases have property that's going to the East Coast.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so what we're seeing is we're seeing that in the case of the buyer fraud,
Mhm.
these folks are, like I said, they'll call and pretend to be from a larger company. They'll order items. I mean, limes, avocado, onions, tomatoes, lettuce, cabbage, you name it. Like I said, at least 50 different commodities I've seen.
Mhm.
And they buy the load. Sometimes it's straight load, sometimes it's a mixer. They understand how to kind of make it so that way we're not overly suspicious. And then the load disappears somewhere on the East Coast. The major locations that I'm hearing about and finding appear to be Florida, New Jersey, New York, the Carolinas, and Maryland.
Wow.
And so what we are seeing with the information we do have so far is that a lot of times what happens is this buyer buys a load, it goes to the East Coast, and it's being delivered to a cross dock. And so what
Mhm.
happens is when the 18-wheeler shows up to the cross dock, somebody makes a phone call, and these smaller delivery trucks pop up, right, out of nowhere, show
Wow.
up on the other side of the cross dock or alongside the truck, And the forklift literally is pulling pallets out of the 18-wheeler and putting them right into these other trucks. So when the 18-wheeler disappears, so do the trucks carrying the stolen product. And then there's no sign, no evidence, and these things are gone. They're in the wind.
Yeah.
And so for whatever reason, the I-5 corridor seems to be where most of these loads are disappearing. And that makes sense. A third of the U.S. population lives on the I-95. So, easy to disappear it among that many people looking to buy fresh produce.
Right, right. Yeah, makes sense as to why they're, going that route.
Right, right.
Let's see. How is this affecting, I guess this is also affecting our carrier partners as well. I mean,
Right.
from what you're saying, have they come out to you and said that this has been an issue for them as well?
Yeah. Yeah, they have. So, we have several truck brokers here in the area who have told me that these fraudsters impersonated their company. And so in order to salvage the business relationship, because someone impersonated their company, they paid they paid the cost for the stolen load,
Yeah.
even though it was their company that got fraudulently impersonated. Right. And I mean, so imagine their frustration. They're
Yes.
doing everything right. Just like in the other case of the scenario, the legitimate companies are doing everything right. It's the fraudster that's taking advantage of the system. So the truck brokers are very concerned because, like I said, the way to confirm the legitimacy of a truck broker is a little more difficult than it is to confirm the legitimacy of a produce buyer.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're very concerned about, ensuring that number one, something is done to stop this. But number two, that the solution is not for people to reduce the number of carrier partners they work with.
Right.
They want to have an opportunity too. And so, yeah, the carriers are very much being affected by this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a sad tale, but I'm happy that we're here today to kind of
Yeah.
get the word out. Fight against this. For anybody listening in, please contact your representatives or your local authorities. Let them know that this is a topic that interests you, that you hope that they're aware of, and that they'll move forward with hopefully helping us in the future. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to this before we finish up?
Yes, absolutely. Two other things. One, if you are a TIPA member and you are listening to this podcast and you have not reported a fraud event that has occurred in the last 5 years, because that's the statute of limitations,
Okay.
please send me the information. Reach out to Amanda or myself. It's easy to find my email, Dante at TIPA. People will know who I am if you're in the industry, and I'm happy to gather that information. Or if you're not a TIPA member, go to the associations you are a member of and let them know that you have been a victim of fraud. Give them the information that you're comfortable with, or that association can always reach out to me and I can give them the guidance that they need. But again, reporting and sharing this information is going to be important. Like I said, as soon as I came across that New Jersey address, I shared it with everybody because at the very least, if someone now sees that New Jersey address, they'll know, wait a minute, this is a fraud event. I know that I'm not going to move forward. So we need to work together to stop this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you again. And hopefully this conversation will shed some more light on this topic, and we will stop these thieves and they will pay the price, because that's my ultimate goal is
That's exactly right.
through Importer Insight, do some more good for our industry. So I really appreciate you joining me again today, Dante. Like you said, industry associations are so important. I really recommend anybody to join TIPA. It's been phenomenal for me, my family, and the organizations that I've worked for. Dante is an excellent advocate for the industry. I think Industry Advocate of the Year, in my opinion.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And stay tuned for the next one. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Thank you.